Hi, I'm going to go over the notes for transformations of parent functions with A values. A copy of these notes is already in your Google Classroom, so please open it up and it should make a copy for you already, and you want to add it to your Google Drive. And as I'm going through these notes, please feel free to add things to your slides. These are your copy, okay? So I'm going to be saying extra things to help you understand more clearer. So please go ahead and type right into the slide. So your learning objectives is to be able to identify reflections and dilations of parent functions. So far, the only transformation we've done for parent functions is number one. We have done translations because we have been identifying H and K, and you have been telling me whether or not the graph went to the left or right or up or down. And that's what a translation is. It's a slide horizontally or vertically. When we did do translations with H and K, the graph might have moved, but it stayed the same size and shape as the parent. So it did not get any bigger or smaller. It just slid. Reflections is something we're about to do. A reflection is when the graph flips or turns upside down. It will also stay the same shape and size as the parent. Dilations is something we're about to do. A dilation will stretch a graph, which makes it get narrower, or compresses, or makes it get wider. When it gets wider or compresses, it looks like it got flat or flatter, okay? The A value determines the dilation of the graph. The graph will still be the same shape, but a different size. So for example, an absolute value graph will still be a V, but your V might look a little flatter or narrower. Oops. So here's some examples. So a translation is when it slides either left or right or up or down. In each of these, the black one is the parent function. A reflection will flip upside down. And the dilation will get either narrower or wider. So remember, when it gets narrower, we call it a stretch, a vertical stretch. Wider, we call it compress or flatten. Your general equation for each function kind of looks like this, where you have an x minus h, or it might say x plus h, but the x and the h are always grouped together, either in parentheses or in bars or under a square root. Your k is outside of your x group, and the a value is right in front of your x group, okay? So the a value determines the dilation of the graph. When A is negative, the graph will reflect or flip over the x-axis. When the A value is between -1 and 1, the graph will compress or get wider. When the A value is greater than 1 but less than -1, the graph will get narrow. So I want to show you exactly what we mean when I say between 1 and -1. So let's act like this is a number line. And let's say here's 0, and here's 1, and here is -1. So if it's a number between -1 and 1, but not 0, so I'm going to put a hole right here. So it could be any of these numbers here and any of these numbers here, but not 0. So what type of numbers are between 0 and 1? Well, you could have 1/2, you could have 2/3, you could have 0.8. See what I'm saying? Decimals, fractions. What about between 0 and -1? Same thing, but they're negative. So you could have -1/2, -2/3, -0.8, etc. Okay? What about when it's greater than +1 or less than -1? So again, let's say this is 0. Let's say this is 1. And let's say this is -1. So if it is greater than +1, what kind of numbers is greater than +1? 2, 3, 4. It could even be 4.5 because that's bigger than 1. When it's less than -1, that means it could be -2, -3. It could be a negative decimal as long as it's bigger than -1, like negative, it could be -2.5. You feel me? So over here we said it could be 2, 3, etc. Okay? So anytime you have like a negative number, but it's past -1 on the number line, your graph is going to get narrower. Or higher than +1, your graph gets narrower. When it's a decimal number, so lower than +1, but bigger than -1, but not 0, your graph is going to get flatter or wider. So I wanted to show you guys that. Okay. All right, let me go back to my slides. We've already talked about the H and the K. So this you should know already. H is your horizontal slide from left to right. When it says when it says X plus H, that means H is negative because you always do the opposite sign. When it says X minus H, your H is positive. Negative H, your graph moves to the left. Positive H, your graph goes to the right. Your K stays the same sign. So when K is negative, the graph is going to go down. When K is positive, your graph shifts up. And these are your other equations. So here is where you can see where your A, your H, and your K is in other functions. Remember, H is always with the X. Your A value is always in front of your X group. Notice a linear function does not have an H. Okay, so if it's just a straight line, that line can get flatter or steeper, but it's going to move up or down. Okay, identify A, H, and K. So I recommend you pause the video and see if you can guess first, and then play the video to see if you are right. Okay, so I can't type when it's in present mode, so I got to go back to regular mode, and I'm going to make this a little bigger. Okay, so for this first equation, the A is the number in front of the X group. So here you should put A equals 4. Describe the transformation. Well, 4 is higher than 1. Remember, when it's higher than 1, then your graph will get narrower. We call that a stretch. Your H value, well, H is in parentheses with the X, but you flip the sign. H is going to be +3. When H is positive, it's going to move to the right. So I'm going to put slide right. See how there is no K? So I will not put no K. When there's no K, that means K is 0. So it does not move up or down. So I'll just leave it like that. For this next one, A, right there in front of the bars, A is -2. -2 goes past -1 on the number line. You feel me? So this graph is going to do the same thing the one above did. It gets narrower, which is a stretch. Your H is in the bars with the X. You must flip the sign. So H is +1. So it will slide to the right. Your K is at the end. K is 5. You do not change the sign of K. Positive K means it's also going to slide up. This next function, so see how we don't see anything in front of A? But A is not 0, because that would mean that A0 is being multiplied by all this. And we know that 0 times anything is 0. Instead, there's an invisible 1 right there. When you don't see an A is going to be 1. When A is 1, there is no stretch or there's no stretch or no compression. No stretch or compression. The H in parentheses with the X, but you flip the sign. H is -1, so it's going to slide left. Your K is at the end, which is 3. That means it slides up. Next one, number in front of the parentheses is 2/3. A equals 2/3. 2/3 is smaller than 1, but it's not 0. So that means it is going to get wider. Getting wider is a compression. So wider, I'm going to put compress. Your H is in parentheses with the X, but you flip the sign. So H is +4. It will slide to the right. 4. There is no K. K is 0. Because if I add 0 to this equation, it stays the same. You feel me? So K is 0. So there is no up or down movement. For this last one, see how there's a negative in front of the bars? So negative what? Negative invisible 1. Oops, -1. When it's -1, so it's not going to stretch or compress, but since it's negative, it actually reflected, or we call it a flip. The H is in parentheses. +6, no, that's going to be a -6 because it says X +6, so we do the opposite. That means it went left 6. There's no K in this one, so K is 0. And up here I should put slide right 3. This one will slide right 1. Slide left 1. This was up 5. This was up 3. This last one, A is in front of the X. A is -1/2. Since it's negative, it's going to reflect, which is a flip. But it also, since it says 1/2, and 1/2 is between -1 and 0 on the number line. Remember a fraction? That means it's going to compress or get wider. Compress. See how there's no number in parentheses with the H? That means H equals 0. Okay, don't say H is 1, because if H is 1, it would have said X -1. But it doesn't say X minus anything. So if you do X -0, you still got that X. But K is -3. So that means it went down 3. Okay? Alrighty, so I'm hoping this helped. Make sure you save these notes to your Google Drive. Here are the instructions to saving the notes for your Google Drive. If you have questions, please send me a message or meet me on the Google Meet. Have a good one.